And I think that your sharing, Senator Keoghan, really sums up, I suppose, and brings into this chamber just how invasive and how frightening it can be. So thank you for that. I want to begin by commending my Fianna Fáil colleagues for bringing forward this important piece of legislation. I commend the bravery of Una Ring and Eve McDowell for sharing their stories and for speaking of their horrific experiences. There is no doubt coming forward, creating the lobbying of Stalking Ireland, and doing that is advancing the case. And it is right that we start to parse down that sense that others have a sense of entitlement to interfere with the free movement, the free living of another individual as a means of control and aggression, and there is no other way to interpret it. So harassment, you're absolutely right, it doesn't go anywhere near describing what this could be and the experience of this for people. Prosecutions for stalking under the guise of harassment have repeatedly failed to hit the bar, and we have a very, very low level of prosecutions, numbers of prosecutions, for that very reason. You know, yesterday morning, and I suppose we take this that stalking is a long way along the road, or way down the road, towards what can be the inevitable consequence, and that being the homicide of an individual. Yesterday morning I listened to the news talk as they talked about the outcome of their recent survey on women and women's sense of safety at night, and the shocking result of 90% of women were uncomfortable to be out alone after dark is really appalling. That's an appalling statistic. So I think that discussion, in that discussion yesterday morning, they said, you know, the biggest fear that men have is that women will laugh at them. Now, I as someone who has been a counselling psychologist, I have counselled men coming through domestic violence and being the victims of it. That isn't the only fear that some men have of women. But the real issue that they talked about then yesterday was the biggest fear that women have is that they will be killed. And the Women's Aid in 2019 published a report, A Legacy of Lost Femicide, and in that it showed, rather frightening statistics, that since 1996, when Women's Aid started collating their figures, 230 women have died violently, including 16 children who were killed alongside their mothers. Almost 2/3 of the women were killed in their own homes. Of the cases, of 100 women were murdered by their partner or ex-partner. Another 20 women were killed by a male relative, and 37 were killed by men who were known to them. You know, and in the murder-suicide cases, we have of 21 of these, it was an ex-partner or partner of the victim. You know, so I think that in it, we need to take very seriously that women really live in the fear that their lives will be ended by this individual. So calling it stalking, having a very serious penalty that is attached to that is really, really important. It's an incredibly important that we have that, and we have that on our statute books, and that the Gardaí, that all services recognise just how serious. It is unacceptable, and repeatedly, as you read the reports and you read the victims' experiences, that people feel that when they talk about it at first, that it's dismissed, that this is, sure, it's just a bit of attention, and it is, their experience is minimised. It's not acceptable for that. And I think that by bringing it forward, having it on the statute books as a standalone offence, in that it frames in all of our minds that we should take seriously that repeated unwanted attention is something that can lead very often to something significantly more sinister, and in that it is really important. It is unacceptable that women in particular live in fear of their lives, and that any other person could exhibit that level of control and aggression, and it is an extremely aggressive act, that of stalking. So I commend you, absolute support from the Fine Gael group in bringing this forward, and thank you.